Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible? Am I too loud? Okay, should I speak up? Okay, awesome. So before I start off, good afternoon to everyone. Hope all of you had lunch, right? We are energized. Come on, let's show off. Let's get a show of hands about who has had their lunch. Come on, please, quick, quick, quick. Yes, awesome. So before I start off, I just want to take a quick survey to understand how many of you have heard of OVH Cloud, how many of you have heard the name, know about OVH Cloud as a company. Please, anyone? Has anyone heard of OVH Cloud? Awesome. I was expecting this, so that is why we have a quick intro video for all of you, right? And please do enjoy.
We are bringing to life a vibrant ecosystem, a committed community of users, contributors, and partners. Together, we are innovators, transforming how we do business across technological, industrial, and commercial industries in moments of great change. OVH Cloud empowers its customers with the freedom to build and innovate. And with 33 data centers worldwide across our fiber optic network, we are the only European cloud with a global presence. Our customers stay in control of their data and their cloud strategies thanks to our transparent, predictable pricing and interoperable solutions. We are leading the way for a sustainable cloud with our disruptive industrial innovations. We are the trusted cloud. With over 1.6 million customers, we are a dynamic reflection of our communities across the globe. Let's rise up to the challenges of tomorrow and build an ecosystem of change together.
Awesome. Now that we know a little bit more about OVH Cloud, let's begin with today's agenda. We will start off with a quick introduction about OVH Cloud. What OVH Cloud is, what do we offer, what are unique propositions. And then my colleague Shiv will take you through, how could you leverage Kubernetes, how could you leverage cloud native technologies to build your applications, right? And then accelerate your time to market. And we'll also have a break in the middle. Post that, we will talk about OVH Cloud Startup Program and how we support early stage startups. And to finally end it, we'll also have a live demo on managed Kubernetes and how would you actually deploy and scale using Kubernetes, right? So yeah, that's the agenda for today. Jumping on to the first part of the masterclass, which is Introduction to OVH Cloud. So here are some key figures about OVH Cloud. Like you saw in the video, we have 37 data centers in 13 different locations. We have been in the business for over 20 plus years. We are a leading cloud service provider from Europe. And if you look at the numbers here, something important that I want to point out is the PUE, power usage efficiency of 1.14, right? So if you look at the industry, if you look at the power consumption in the IT infrastructure industry, the closer that you are to 1, the better it is, right? And currently the industry standards are about 1.4. So we have achieved a power usage efficiency of 1.14, and that is on backdrop of we using water cooling in our data centers rather than air conditioning that you see here, right? So that way we are trying to move towards a much more sustainable cloud option, right? So these are some key figures about OVH Cloud. We'll talk about it more probably after the session as well, but yeah, just wanted to mention all of this. Right. So in terms of OVH Cloud, like I mentioned, we are a major player. In fact, IDC's MarketScape Infrastructure as a Service report of 2022 also listed us as a major player in public cloud, along with the major hyperscalers that all of us know. And here are some of our credentials as well. Talking about our journey and how we started, Octave. He's a Polish person, started off with this company as a startup back in 1999. And if you see, we first opened our data center in 2001 in Paris. and we in fact started manufacturing our own servers as well in from 2002 onwards. So if you look at OVH Cloud, we are a fully vertically integrated company, right? So we manage the full value chain. We manufacture our own servers, we design them, we ship them to our own data centers, and then we also reutilize the components once they reach end of life, right? So that's servers manufacturing started from 2002, and then 2003 was when we started using water cooling, and this is a patented technology by us. So like you can see here, over the years, we have expanded to Europe first because we started off with European presence, and then we now have expanded internationally. We have, data centers and offices in the US. We have a data center in India, in Mumbai. We have an office in Bangalore as well. And right now, we have become a truly global company, right? So just one final thing before I hand it over to my colleague to start off with the managed Kubernetes part. These are 5 strong differentiating factors of OVH Cloud that I want to talk about, right? So OVH Cloud has the best price performance ratio. You will get the best performance at the price point that you're looking at, right? You have full control of the costs. You will not see your cloud costs spiraling out of the control. And then we also take a hybrid cloud approach. We understand that not everything can be on cloud. Enterprises need to keep some of their data private, probably on private cloud or probably on premise as well. So we take that approach, and all of our products and services are built keeping that principle in mind, right? And like I already mentioned, we are a totally vertically integrated and scalable, sustainable company. And we have a huge active ecosystem of partners and, which offer PaaS and SaaS offerings. So we specialize in infrastructure as a service offering, and then we have partners who offer SaaS and PaaS solutions on top of it, right? So yeah, with this, I hand it over to my colleague who will talk about how you could build your, IT infrastructure on Kubernetes with OVH Cloud. Thanks.
Thanks, Satyam. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the session today. Before we dive into the masterclass regarding how to build your applications and more towards on a cloud technologies, or how to leverage the cloud technologies to build your application on the cloud, it's very important that you understand what our background is and where we come from. So one of the unique proposition that we have is that we work with a very active ecosystem, and the services that we build, the cloud services that we build on our platforms, are entirely ecosystem oriented with open standards. So you will not face any challenges when you are deploying the application on OVH Cloud, because it is working on open standards, and you don't have to specifically learn any new technology in order to use OVH Cloud services. So, so that's one of the unique propositions that we have in terms of using our cloud solutions, right? So I'll dive into how we can build the applications on cloud, and which is basically we call cloud native. So as we understand, there are a lot of technological evolutions happened, and now cloud is at the forefront of building a lot of applications, but we still do have a lot of companies who are using legacy technologies and using older infrastructure in order to run their applications, to deploy their applications. But when you are building a new solution altogether, or you have a new product, and when you are building that particular product on a technology, and you don't necessarily have to go back to the older technologies. Now you can leverage the new technologies, especially the cloud native technologies, and you can build your application onto that. And how you can do that and how you can achieve that, that's what we're going to look in this particular masterclass. All right. So, so one of the important aspects when you are developing the solutions on cloud is now you have this leverage where you can build your solutions as you use. right? So at the end of the day, you are consuming some kind of an IT infrastructure when you are deploying the applications, whether it is deploying your on-premise or whether you are deploying on cloud. One of the advantages that cloud gives you, especially the public cloud gives you, is that you can use the infrastructure as per your requirement. You don't have to necessarily consume the resources that you are not required. Like for example, let's say today you don't need a certain amount of resources and you don't have to invest capital on those resources as of today, but public cloud or especially the cloud provides you that the leverage where you can consume the resources and pay only for the resources that you use, right? So that's what essentially the public cloud is. It provides you with compute, with storage, with networking options, and other platform solutions where you don't have to again invest your resources on managing that particular infrastructure, especially the infrastructure as a service solutions like compute storage or maybe platform solutions. It could be any kind of a database solution, managed solutions like databases or managed applications. You don't have to invest your resources on that. Rather, you can use the resources for other needs such as developing the applications and as such, right? So that's what public cloud gives you. And what OVH Cloud does differently is, as I said, we work on open standards. So we are, so OpenStack, and we leverage OpenStack as the underlying platform to provide all our public cloud services, right? So what does the open source does is it gives you what open source is, OpenStack is a large open source community project which bundles services related to orchestration of compute, network, and storage. And you can also use, and we are a very active member of OpenStack community, and we are leveraging all the initiatives that are part of the OpenStack solution, and we are integrating into our cloud platform. This gives us the advantage, or for as a customer, it gives you an advantage, or end user, it gives you an advantage where you don't have to necessarily learn a new technology in order to build your application. You can just leverage the open standard solutions and then you can build on top of that. So that's the key advantage that we bring in. And this also gives you a major advantage where you don't have to lock in for a vendor specific kind of application. So you don't have to necessarily learn a technology, use that vendor technology, and then build your application, and then you are tied up with that particular vendor because you are using that particular vendor's application or technology. So we are entirely open source, so you don't have to necessarily build your application with a specific vendor technology, and rather leverage open source solutions and build your application on top of that. All right. All right, and see, as you can see, I'll just move the chair. And our stack of public cloud is built on OpenStack, and we are powering our public cloud with OpenStack, and as we are using OpenStack solution, it is built on open standards. All right. So this is how the ecosystem of the services that we are building on our public cloud. Like as Satyam pointed out, we build our own bare metal servers. So we have our own manufacturing facilities where we build our own bare metal servers, and we leverage these bare metal servers to build the virtualization technologies on top of that. And then we either provide them as instances where you can deploy your own instance, run your application on top of that, or you can go further and build more kind of a microservice based application where you can run your services on containers. And for that, we are providing again an open standard solution called Kubernetes, right? So we look how OVH Cloud provides the Kubernetes solution and how you can deploy your applications on top of that. So at the end of the day, whichever product that you are developing, and when you are transforming that into an application, then the application becomes key, right? So when application becomes key, you want your resources, your entire resources to be concentrating on the application deployment, application development, application deployment, and maintaining that application rather than worrying about the underlying infrastructure. So underlying infrastructure is taken care by OVH Cloud, and then you can have your resources entirely concentrating on the application development, deployment, and maintaining of that. And how you can do that, right? Either you can either develop your applications if you have legacy applications, especially, or if you are developing a new application, you can focus on the application modernization. Let's say you have a simple application which has a front end and a back end database along with some file storage. All right. So how you can do is that you can use public cloud instances for your front end applications. You can use the public cloud instances for the front end applications. You can use object storage for storing your files, and then you can use the managed databases for storing any data on those databases. So what is the flexibility that you are getting here? So you don't have to again do any upfront investment on the infrastructure resources. You just are consuming what resources that are needed for you, and rather worrying about the underlying infrastructure, which is again managed by the cloud provider, you can focus on the application. It gives you more elasticity, unlimited scalability, and you can just focus on your business logic for the application, rather than worrying about the underlying infrastructure. All right? So from a database, managed databases perspective, you can either choose SQL or non-SQL based databases. Then you can build your application on top of that. Or in case if you have a requirement where you will have to scale dynamically your application. So you have built a mobile app and you have a lot of users connecting to your mobile app. And then then you need scalability for that, so that more users can connect to your application, to your mobile application, or maybe an internet application that you have developed, or a web application that you have developed. So you can leverage the microservices based architecture, which is especially the Kubernetes using containers and orchestration layer of Kubernetes. So with that, you can deploy your applications, which gives you scalability, where you can dynamically scale your resources up and down, so that whenever you have a whenever you have more users connecting to your application, you can scale up your resources, and when the resources are not needed, you can scale down those applications. So this gives you that flexibility. Hello. All right. Sorry. So how we are looking at is, like, in case if you are scaling up and scaling down on resources, you can leverage the container platform and orchestration solution with managed Kubernetes. You can use public cloud instances, and then you can leverage the databases and object storage for storing file and the database elements, right? All right. So how are we offering our managed Kubernetes service? So again here, so when you leverage our managed Kubernetes service, so you need an management cluster, which is which manages your containers that are running on the cluster. So that will be taken, that is included, that is we provide the cluster Kubernetes deployment. We will do the monitoring and updates. We will host your master node components, and then the deployment of OS and Kubernetes updates will be done by OVH Cloud. So basically all the administration related tasks for your Kubernetes service will be done by OVH Cloud, and then you can work on your application logic on top of it. So that's how our Kubernetes service is being offered. And you can use different resource types. Like if you want, initially if you are doing a prototyping, then you can use these instances for prototyping, which we call as discovery instances. Then you can use general purpose instances for more like if you want to run balanced resources. If you have a very CPU intensive resources, then you can run CPU based instances. Or if you are using very RAM intensive applications, then you can use RAM instances, or GPU or IOPS based. So these all instances are supported under our Kubernetes platform. You can use one of these instances and then you can build your application on top of it. All right. And the Kubernetes service is designed in a way that it is support scaling. So as your application is scaling up and scaling down, your Kubernetes service will also scale up and scale down along with that. And this will give you the flexibility where you will be paying for your compute or storage resources when you are scaling up and scaling down. You will be paying additional compute only for the compute when it is scaling up, and when you scale down, it will go back to the original resource consumption. All right. Along with that, we also work with a very active ecosystem of Kubernetes services. Whether in case if you want to use more of a infrastructure as a code as a service, where you want to build your code for your infrastructure and then deploy it, you have support with Terraforms. We support with Terraform. If you want to do a CI/CD kind of a deployment with Jenkins and Ansible, you can do the CI/CD deployment. So all these ecosystem of services are supported with our OVH Cloud resources. And in our demo, I'll show you how this can be done and how you can leverage that. I will talk a little bit on the database as a service, because one of the components that is important when you are developing an application is databases. So which nowadays we are building more of a three-tiered architecture where you have web servers at the front end, and then you have application servers and database services at the back end. So we also offer a database as a service for your application, and we support these databases from both SQL and non-SQL and time series databases, where the administration part of the database will be taken care by us, and so that you can work on your database, you can create the databases, and then you can work on the app logic for those databases rather than worrying about the underlying administration of the services. All right. So how it is done? Like for example, traditionally, if you are self-hosting your database, then you would be either it will be on your premise or it will be self-hosted. You have to maintain the infrastructure of that. You have to deploy the OS. You will have to maintain the OS installation and updates. You have to do the database installation and updates. You have to take care of the backups. You have to take care of the availability. You have to take care of the scaling, and then you have to take care of the monitoring part, and then you also have to manage your databases. So this is where most of your resources will be consumed. So instead, OVH Cloud will offer you with managed databases, where we will manage it until the monitoring, where we will be managing the data center, we will be managing the OS installation updates, we will be doing the database installation and updates, we will be taking care of the backups, we will taking care of the availability, we will take care of the scaling, we will take care of the monitoring. You just have to build your own, we have to deploy your databases or create your databases and then integrate with your applications. All right. And we talked a little bit on the databases. So in case if you have to do any file storage, then you have the support of object storage, file storage, as well as block and archive. So let's say in case if you have any unstructured data that you want to store, whether it is your files with those can be stored in object storage. And if you want to have like a more like a file share kind of a solution, then you have the file storage option. Then in case if you want to store the data on more persistent disk along with the virtual machines, then you can use the block storage. And in case if you want to retain that particular data or the backups for a long time, then you can use those archiving solutions. All right. Now we will dive into the demo, and I'll show a little bit more on the demo on the how our public cloud is used. I'll show a little bit more of our console, how our console looks like, and how you can consume our public cloud resources. And then we will dive into how the container-based applications can be deployed and how they can be leveraged. All right. So I think you might be familiar with the consoles of various hyperscalers. So this is how our console looks like. So mostly the first step that you will do when you want to consume a public cloud service is you want to create a project. Then you will be consuming the resource within the that particular project. So this will give you the management and governance on that particular project, like who can create the resources and how they can create the resources. And also, it will also give you the management on granular management on the billing aspects also. So we'll click on one of the project. All right. So you can see various services that can be leveraged within the project, and starting with compute, storage, network, and running the container-based services and database and analytics. All right. So the first step that we'll do is to, like for example, if you have deployed the container-based applications, the first step that we have to do, and if we in a Kubernetes platform, is to create a Kubernetes cluster. Right. So we will start with a Kubernetes cluster creation. And I'll show you how this Kubernetes cluster can be created. You can come and create a Kubernetes cluster here, and you can select the region where you want to create this particular service, and then you can select which region of that particular, which version of that particular service that you want to create. It's always recommended to use the latest one, and then you can choose if you want to keep this more private or it will be accessible on the public networks. For this demo, we will just keep it on the public network. And the next step is to select what type of resources that we want to use. So we've looked in that particular chart, right, whether depending upon what type of resources that you would be deploying, you will be either selecting a general purpose resource, or a CPU intensive resource, or a RAM, or a GPU based resource. So for this, since we are not doing it for production, it's only for testing, we'll just select the discovery instance. All right. Now, here you can select what type of nodes you want to use in your cluster and how many of them you want to use. And then if you want to scale it automatically. Now, in case if you want to scale it automatically, you will have to enable the auto scaling. In case if you don't want to scale it automatically, you can keep it disabled. I will enable the auto scaling, and you can select the number of nodes up to now, the max number of nodes that you want to scale. And I'll just give it as a number as 5. And the minimum nodes in that particular pool would be 3. and then you can select the billing type, whether you want to do it the monthly billing or an hourly billing. We'll go with the hourly billing option. All right, we'll just give it a name. All right, this will begin the process of creating the cluster. All right, so cluster creation process typically takes around 3 to 5 minutes. So we'll let this cluster creation process continue, and in the meanwhile, I'll show you how the cluster looks like. So I already have one deployed cluster here. So I'll just walk you through how that particular cluster looks like. All right, this is how the cluster looks like, and you would see what is the version of it, the Kubernetes version that it is running, which region that it is being used, whether you're using any private network, and then other options are there. And then how many nodes are there in your cluster, you can come and see under node pools. As you can, we have this node pool here, and as you can see, there are 3 nodes in this particular cluster. So whatever application that you will deploy will get deployed on those nodes. So when you create an application and deploy it, it will get deployed on this particular node that we have created right now. Okay. These are the nodes in this particular cluster. All right. Now, the next step that we'll do is we'll deploy our first application onto this particular cluster. But before we do it and deploy the application, first step we have to do is to connect to this cluster. So for connecting this cluster, there is a configuration file that is available where you can connect to this particular cluster. This is the configuration file. You will use this configuration file and then connect to the cluster. I have already downloaded this in event of time. I have already downloaded that particular configuration file, and I'll show you how we can connect it.
Next, we have BSc from BPM Power Private Limited.
As you can see here, it's visible to everyone. As you can see here, it's connecting to the cluster. So this one is connecting to the cluster. This is the same cluster that we have deployed previously. The cluster details are available here, and you can view that is available. It's connecting to the same cluster. Right, and this is the same cluster that we are connected to, right? Now, if you want to see what are my nodes in that particular cluster, you can just do the visibility of the nodes here. These are the nodes that are already there, are part of the cluster. So these are the ones that we saw previously under the node pool section, the 3 nodes that we have deployed, and this is the list of the nodes that are there. All right. So for now, what we'll do is that we'll deploy an application on this particular node in this cluster with 3 nodes on it. All right. So that's the first step we'll do. We'll deploy a simple application with a web server, and then we will see how we can connect to that particular web server. This particular tutorial shows or guide shows you how to deploy the Hello World application on your OVH managed Kubernetes cluster, right? So we did the first part where we need a. I'll just make the visibility a little bit bigger. All right. So we did the first part of deploying the Kubernetes cluster. Now we'll do the deployment of the application. So. So this is a typical application deployment that happens on Kubernetes, where you create a format of what application that you want to deploy and how you want to deploy it. Like in Kubernetes, you create any application as a deployment. So this is your application deployment here. And you will also create a service in order to access this particular application. So in this, we are doing two steps. One is that we are creating the service to access this application, and then we are also deploying the application. So those are the two steps that we are doing in this particular case, and we will take this entire configuration as it is, and then we'll apply this configuration on the Kubernetes cluster, and then we'll see how we can access this particular cluster, this application, okay? So first step is to create a space. We call it as a namespace in Kubernetes to host this particular application. So we are creating that particular namespace. We have created the namespace, and now I have that particular configuration for the application already copied here. I'll just cat it. All right, this is my application deployment where I'm creating the application deployment here with the application here. And then we have the service that can access this particular application. And the next step is to do this deployment of application. So this is how you do the deployment. All right, the application is now created. All right, so we'll see how this deployment looks like and see how the application is currently running on the cluster. All right, as you can see, you have that Hello World deployment and the application is running. Now we will just gather the service where it is running from, and then we'll access that particular application. All right, in case if you want to further see how this deployment would look like, you can also check the deployment, what is the current state of this particular deployment. This is the application.
So if you look at very specific trips only to India, we have around 160,000 of these trips taken every year. And what we're trying to target in our initiative is just 10% of the new customers.
See how quickly you can do the deployment after the cluster is deployed. You can now access this application with the cluster deployment.
Current traction is that we are, it changed today, we have another customer working. We have around 30 customers who has come and worked with us. And
This is how the deployment of any application can be done, and and the best part is that you can now concentrate on your application development and deployment rather than worrying about the underlying infrastructure. All right. All right. Now we have deleted that application altogether, and now we'll look into the next part, which is how you can further add more resources to your cluster. Now we'll go and add more resources to your cluster. So you can just go to the control panel and then go to the node pools, and you can further add more node pools in this. Okay. You can add more resources to the by creating node pool. So we'll just name this as dev02. We'll just, and then you can choose what type of node pools that you want to deploy, and you can select those node pools.
So before going on to the next pitch, so the startups who have completed the pitch may please leave so that our upcoming startups and investors would sell.
And this time I'll create a node pool with auto scaling enabled, or I'll keep it disabled for now. And
Flexibility draw from Android.
and then I'll save this. And you would notice that the node pools are getting created. You can come here and you can check the same. Satyam to brief about the startup program.
This is even affordable to the common people who want that have what is that step into fintech domain. So coming to the working professionals which is analyzed, they don't have the time to invest. They have completely fixed
Sure. So thanks, Shiv. Thanks for the wonderful demo. I'll quickly talk about what OVH Cloud offers, right, as part of startup program. So startup program is kind of like an early stage support program from OVH Cloud, which supports idea to Series A level startups with free credits, with mentorship, with tech support, with access to market, wherein which we connect you with VCs, we connect you with funding, we connect you with funding opportunities, and we also offer something called as a mentorship program for co-founders, wherein which if a co-founder is interested to get mentored on any specific theme, let's say like you want to know about how to improve your website SEO, you want to know about how to do better sales, right? So we have seasoned mentors within our company, wherein which you would have one-on-one mentorship with them over 3 months, and this is how the startup program has been structured. So we take startups from idea to Series A stage, like I mentioned, and the duration of the program is 12 months. And the wonderful thing is we don't take any equity from startups. This is totally a free program that we run as part of a startup program, right? So all of the technology that you see earlier can actually be deployed using the credits that you get as part of this program. Now, I just want to mention about some of the key, figures about the startup program. So this startup program was launched back in 2015, and since then we have supported over 4,000 startups in our program globally. Currently, I think in India we have over 50 plus startups that are undergoing this startup program, and globally we have over 900 startups which are part of this program, right? And we also have an internal platform called Whaler. So Whaler is kind of like a virtual networking platform between startup founders, between other startup ecosystem players as well. And currently we have over 800 members on that platform. And one of the key metrics that I want to point out here is that we have over 150 plus scale-ups as well. So we define scale-ups of as any startup which is wanting to either grow their business in terms of newer international expansion, or in terms of getting more and more features added onto their products. So we have over 150 plus scale-ups in the program as well. Just want to mention here are some of the startup this is not exhaustive list. Again, we have some logos here that I've mentioned. These are the startups which are which are part of the program as of now. And if you're interested in this startup program, happy to give you more information after this session, probably tomorrow and day after tomorrow as well, and happy to connect with you. So yeah, I'll give it back to Shiv now for continuing the demo. Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thanks, Satyam. All right.
Yes. Because
We will switch back to the demo.
this and you have to work on ensures and moreover you could see this as a proper way that you will be catering to it. Yes, from my story skill, we can analyze all the clouding platforms which you need to be overview.
Okay, now the next step that we'll see is how to scale your applications, right? So when you use cloud, you use it for scaling applications. So with this example, with this, what we'll see is how can you scale your application that is deployed on Kubernetes? How you can auto scale it, rather than worrying about looking at the workload and see whether we need additional resources or not, and how you can teach the cluster to auto scale itself. All right. So in this, what we'll do is we'll create. First thing is we need to enable the auto scaling on the node pool, and that's the first step that we will do. We will enable the auto scale. We will check whether the auto scaling is available on the nodes or not, whether nodes can automatically scale up, and then. And then what we will do is we will verify how many nodes are there in that particular scale and if it is auto scaled or not. All right. And the next step also what we will do is that we look at one example of how we can leverage an application. So we will we will do a testing with a workload and see how we can scale up and scale down. All right. So to begin with, first we need to verify whether if our nodes, how many nodes we have, and whether we can, how we can scale up and scale down on those nodes. All right. So these are the current nodes that are running in our cluster, and auto scaling is not enabled on this. There are two nodes that are running, dev 01 and dev 02. All right. And there is no, these are the two node pools that we have, dev 01 with these kind of resources, and currently there are three nodes that are running on it. And on both of these, both of these node pools, there is no auto scaling enabled. So we'll start with the first step by enabling auto scaling on that particular node. All right, it's giving the description of our node pool. As you can see, we are currently using these type of nodes, and currently we have 3 nodes in this cluster. And at one point that it will show that auto scaling is not enabled, it is false, and how much time it will take up to scale up and scale down, and what is the threshold for scale down, that is what is mentioned here. So right now, we have to go ahead and enable the auto scale on this particular node.
And we are working on a lot of products right now, working on 8 plus products we'll be launching in the coming 2 months. And we're also continuing to PDP segment, which is growing very fast.
All right. So for the first step in that particular process is to patch the node pool and enable the auto scale. So we are setting the parameter on the auto scale to true. All right.
And we are currently, our 90% of current sales are coming through brand website. We are present on Amazon and also the other where we come through B2B and and we aim to be the Heinz for India. Heinz started selling baked beans in 1900, and right now Heinz is selling 1.5 million cans a day. So that's how we are selling in the future. And we also
All right. We have patched that particular node pool, and now we will verify if the auto scale parameter is set or not.
selects 5 to 6 startups in India as a whole in each year, and we got one of them in the last year. So we are raising 3.25 crore. Our aim is to become 10 crore in the next 12 months.
As you can see, we have now changed that auto scaling, and we have turned it to true.
Increase our market presence. Thank you so much.
Right. The next, now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and test this particular scaling, how the scaling will work like. So we have an application which, we have a small application which we will deploy on the cluster on that particular node, and then we'll try to scale up on that particular node. So we are building we will deploy an application called which tests the prime numbers. All right. We'll copy this particular application. We'll copy this application deployment, and then we will do this. We will deploy this application on that particular node that has been set to auto, where we have set it to auto node pool enabled. Called prime numbers, and we will see what's the current status of that particular application and how it is deployed.
88 apps were required, and how do we do this? So we looked at some common modules that were required. Got all the common modules, we made it reusable. We add all these modules.
So it is creating currently. The containers are getting created. As you can see, the container creating is happening.
A new addition, a new upselling, or cross-selling can happen. So as a result of this approach in the last 6 months, this is what we are doing, trying to become a low-code engine. In the last 6 months, we have become a low-code horizontal SaaS, a low-code vertical SaaS connecting all the products. And we have delivered 4 products in 6 months, 7 types of industries. We have served 28 apps we have made for different industries. And
All right. Now, as you can see, all the 3 pods are currently running because we, in the application, we defined that we need 3 replicas. We wanted 3 replicas of this application running, so we have 3 replicas or 3 pods running for that particular application. Okay. Now what we'll do is we will try to scale up and add more of these containers, creating for more pods. So we will patch this deployment of prime numbers, and we'll increase the count of replicas from currently the 3 replicas to 12 replicas. before I do that, I just wanted to show that we are currently running three replicas of that particular application, and now with this change, which patch that we're going to apply, we'll increase the number of replicas from 3 to 12, and then we'll see how node gets auto scaled by itself. So we are seeing that we have applied the patch, and now we'll see that the number of replica count will be increasing. So we'll try to get the number of replica counts. And as you can see, the number of the replicas of that particular application has increased from 3 to 12. All right, now we'll see what happened on the node pools. So all right. So as you can see, we have currently one node pool where the auto scaling is enabled, and currently it is using the max utilization. The three nodes are currently being utilized on max, and we have increased the replicas for now from 12 to 24, and we'll see that there will be further nodes that will be getting added as and when we are scaling up. Right? And that's how the scaling will get applied, and it will automatically increase the number of ports as and when your resources are, as and when you keep on increasing the resources, the cluster will automatically scale itself, and it will try to increase the number of resources. All right. So in case if you want to try, we have this guide that is available that you can use, and you can replicate the same. And it will, you can also try out this particular application deployment. All right. And going further, the next what we look at is how you can go ahead and do the same deployment and do the automation of this particular deployment. And before we go ahead and do that, I will also like to show what are the other ways that you can expose your application to the outside world once you have done the deployment. Before we go ahead and do that, we'll just clean up this particular deployment. We'll do the cleanup of this deployment. Via the console. But we will also want to show how you can also automate the deployment and use infrastructure as a code as a service like Terraform in order to continue with this deployment. So in this, what we'll do is we'll use the OVH Cloud Terraform provider, and then we will use the credentials and then do the deployment of the same. So what we'll do is we'll create a project called Cloud Project Cube, and then we'll create another another resource called Cloud Project Cube Node Pool, and we will use those two to deploy the Kubernetes cluster. And in order to connect to the cluster, we need some API tokens, and we'll use these API tokens in order to connect to that.
As we
This is the Terraform the Terraform provider that has for OVH Cloud in order to use it. So we'll use this or Terraform provider and connect to the OVH Cloud resources. And from there, we will do the application deployment. And uh, this is how your deployment the deployment code looks like. So as you can see, we are using we will be creating a cluster called MyCube cluster, and we'll be selecting one of the regions to do the deployment. We will specify that particular region over there, and which version of Kubernetes that we want to deploy. We will specify the version of that particular Kubernetes, and then we will specify the resource, what resources that we want to deploy. And accordingly, we will specify the resource name and provide the service name, which cube version that we're going to use, and what type of nodes that we're going to use, what is the minimum and maximum nodes that we want to use. And also, we will also capture how to connect to this particular cluster once the deployment is complete. So these are the things that we're going to do in this Terraform deployment. The first step is you would need a Terraform application that needs to be deployed locally. Either you can deploy it on your laptop, or you can create a public cloud jump box where you can have the Terraform installation deployed. I already have this Terraform installation deployed. So now we'll create the variable files. Look at what provider.tf file has, which is connecting to the OVH cloud provider. All right, as you can see, we have specified which provider to connect, which is OVH cloud, and what would be the source of that particular provider. We have already specified it. And we need some kind of credentials in order to connect to that, and we have these credentials. I'll show you how we will capture these credentials, and we have specified in that. So this is the connection point that we will be doing from Terraform to OVH Cloud, and then followed by the deployment of the cluster. All right. So in this particular variable, you need to we will be specifying which project that the created project, which project to connect to, and we will be specifying that project details here. And I'll show you how to capture this particular information. And the third one is the deployment. So this is the deployment where we are specifying what is the name of the cluster should be, which region it has to be deployed, and what are the node pools that needs to be used in order to create that. And how many nodes are needed in that particular cluster. All right. Now we have something called as a provider dot. All right. So here there are some connectivity information, or we call it as a token that we have captured here, and we have specified in this particular file. And how to capture this particular information is there is a token generation page. You need to go to this token generation page and you need to specify for what type of activity that you want to generate the token for and then generate the token. In this case, I'll just go to this particular page to show you. All right. So here you would be specifying what application that is needed and what type of token that is needed, and you will specify those details here, and then you will create and you will get capture some token details over there, and these and it will be listed as these numbers. So you will be capturing the application key, application tree secret, and consumer key. These are the three information that you will get, and then you will specify that information in this particular file, the application key, application secret, and consumer key. Now, once this information is fed, the second information that needs to be captured is your service, which service that you are reading. So the service name can be captured from the console itself, where you have created the project. You would have the service information listed over there. So we'll go back to the service, and here is the service information here that is located, and you will capture that, and then you will specify in the file. Once you do those, you can go ahead and specify that information under variables file. A location where you have to specify that. I'll clear this. And there you have that information over there. And now once these informations are captured and everything is done, then we will plan for this particular deployment. We will run something called as Terraform init to initialize this particular deployment, right? And then we will do something called as Terraform plan. All right, there is some error that has occurred. Just give me a minute. So, as you can see, it will create a cluster, a Kubernetes cluster called MyKube cluster, and it will create in the region called SPG1. It will create under the project. This is the project, and it will create the version of 1.27. And it will create 3 nodes in that particular cluster of this particular configuration. The maximum nodes would be 3. The minimum nodes is 3. And the pool name would be my pool. Right? Now we'll go ahead and apply this particular configuration. All right, it's started creating the project, and you can verify and check here, come back, and you can check that the Kubernetes deployment has started. As you can see here, the cluster that we are trying to deploy, the MyCube cluster has started. So this is the cluster that we are deploying, MyCube cluster. And as you can see, the cluster deployment has started, MyCube cluster. And if I go to the manage cluster of this particular service, it is currently deploying that particular cluster. Right? All right. So this would take at least 5 minutes for the cluster deployment to complete. And while the cluster deployment is ongoing, what I'll do is I'll quickly cover on the remaining aspects of the public cloud services. Like for example, in case if you want to deploy a simple instance, you can come here and go to the instances and right? You can come here and say create instance. You can select one of these. You can select the region. You can select one of the operating system images that you want to install. You can add an SSH key. Directly from the GUI, or you can even use automation tools to deploy it. And similarly, we have different other services like databases, where if you want to specifically deploy uh, a SQL or a non-SQL based database, you can come here and choose one of the database deployments and you can deploy it. Let's say if you want to create a particular service of, let's say, MySQL, and the resources that you want to select for the MySQL is, so we have three different variants of MySQL that can be deployed. You can deploy it a single node MySQL, multiple node MySQL, and a 3-node MySQL. With single node, you would have one master node that will be there, and with 2 nodes, you would have one master and one replica, and with 3 nodes, you have one master and 2 replicas. And you can select one of the regions and the resources to deploy, and once you deploy it, you would have this or deployed managed database service that is available. You can straight away and go ahead and connect to this particular database service and start consuming it as it is. As you can see, the database service is getting created, and typically it takes around a couple of minutes for this service to get created. And once it is created, you would be able to go ahead and start consuming the resources with this database. All right. With that, I would like to conclude. And in case if you have any questions, you can connect with us over the LinkedIn. And these are our LinkedIn profiles. You can scan and you can connect with us, and you can reach out to us for any additional information. Thank you.